Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. Welcome to another session of the US Spectrum. Today we'll cover difference between methods and methodology. Methodology is a word that gets thrown around a lot, sometimes confidently, sometimes carelessly, and often with more confusion than clarity. At its core, methodology simply means the study of methods. But somewhere along the way, that meaning got muddled. You'll often hear people use methodology as if it's just a fancier way of saying method. And let's be honest, it does sound more impressive. But that's not quite right. That's why, in student dissertations, and even in published research papers, what's called the methodology section often ends up being just a list of what was done. The surveys conducted, the interviews carried out, the sampling strategy used, and the statistical tools applied. That's all useful, but it's not methodology. Even when it's not confused with methods, the picture isn't much clearer. As Jonathan Grix rightly pointed out, the confusion is made worse by the way methodology is often used interchangeably and incorrectly with other big words like epistemology, approach, and even paradigm. So let's see what methodology actually means, how it's different from methods, and why getting that difference right really matters, not just for designing solid research, but for understanding and critiquing the work of others too. At the end, I'll give a simple metaphor that I think would be helpful. Scientific inquiry across all disciplines, whether physics, biology, or sociology, relies on theories to guide exploration and our understanding of the world. The social sciences are no exception. In fact, some argue they're even more complex. One of my professors used to say, social sciences are the real hard sciences. But that's a debate for another day. However, if you're curious, here's a great read to dive deeper. Anyways, unlike the physical sciences, which generally operate within clear, often cumulative theoretical frameworks, the social sciences are shaped by multiple competing paradigms or meta-theories. These theories don't necessarily function in the same way as those in the physical sciences, where one theory often replaces or builds directly upon another in a linear progression. Instead, in social sciences, various theories and perspectives often coexist and compete, presenting different lenses rooted in alternative claims about reality, or ontological paradigms in knowledge, or epistemic traditions that serve as the foundation of social science. But at the same time, present meta-methodological concerns. How we perceive reality and whether and how it can be known shapes the kinds of methods that make sense for our research. Methodology helps us connect those broad philosophical ideas to the actual tools we use. It makes sure our methods match our beliefs about knowledge and helps us explain why we're using them. Methods, on the other hand, are the practical steps we take, like doing interviews, sending out surveys, or analyzing data. These are the things we do to gather and make sense of information based on the research approach that our methodology points us toward. I've created a separate, more detailed video explaining the links between ontology, epistemology, methodology, and methods, as well as Cresswell's editions of axiological and rhetorical considerations. For now, I'm just focusing on differentiating methodology from methods. Let's look at an example. Imagine you and your team have been given the task to construct a building in your area. It could be a school or a prison. Now, to complete this task, you need to make some important decisions. First, you'll need to decide what kind of building to make, a school or a prison. This decision depends not only on the needs of the local community, but also on your own worldview, your beliefs and assumptions about what matters most. It's about defining the purpose of the task. And in research, this is like deciding what you want to find out and what you believe is possible to know. Second, you'll pick a location based on several factors like where it is most needed or accessibility and safety. This is similar to choosing your research site and context, where and with whom your research will take place. Third, designing the blueprint, a clear plan that shows how to use the space wisely. In research, this is like choosing the design of your study, how you structure your data collection and analytical approach. Fourth is to ensure compliance. Before you start construction, you need to make sure your building meets standards and regulations. These are rules that make sure the building is safe and suitable for its purpose. In research, this is like thinking about ethical standards and academic validity of the conclusions. Now, come the actual steps of doing the work. First, construction. This is where you actually build the structure, laying the foundation, putting up walls, installing windows, doors, wiring, and plumbing. These are like your actual data collection through interviews, surveys, experiments, etc. Finally, you'll add the required equipment. Whiteboards and computers in a school, security cameras and locking systems in a prison. This step is like analyzing your data, using software or tools that make your results useful and meaningful. Now in research, the first 4 steps, purpose, context, design, and standards, are what we call methodology. And the last 2 steps are what we call methods, the actual techniques we use to carry out the work. Planning requires a completely different set of skills and considerations than actually carrying out the work. Just because someone can install and manage a high-security locking system doesn't mean they can design a correctional facility. Similarly, being able to run a statistical test doesn't mean you've carefully thought through why that method is appropriate in the first place. That's why understanding the difference between methodology and methods is so important. You can't just jump into building or researching without a clear and thoughtful plan. And you can't properly assess someone else's research unless you understand the reasoning and assumptions behind their choices. I hope this was helpful. See you in the next video. Bye.